Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to unlock your full potential, then do we have the Believe It to Achieve It show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Christina Stein, author, speaker, and psychotherapist, and the co-author of a powerfully empowering new book along with her co-author Brian Tracy, Believe It to Achieve It. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about overcoming doubts, letting go of the past, and unlocking your full potential. That, plus we'll talk about magic wands, kittens and tigers, reactor cores and emotional power generators, why it's never too late to have a happy childhood, the importance of planner pad, and what in the world kissing frogs has to do with anything. Gotcha. So welcome to the show, Christina. Are you
Thanks,
ready
Michael.
to shine?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Woohoo! All right. So before we dive right into things, I can't resist. What were your earliest years like growing up with Brian Tracy as a dad?
That's a great question. Well, let's see. I was a very motivated child.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely had a lot of emphasis on goals. I think that certainly helped my direction and my future. My dad is a very positive man. And so I think it was very helpful growing up believing that, anything is possible if you're willing to work for it. And that was probably the biggest message I got, that sky's the limit. Whatever you choose to imagine can be your reality, but not that it just appears, but you have to work towards it.
Yep.
You either learn the skills you need to learn, you get the information you need. But that plus the idea that, when you hit an obstacle, it doesn't mean that that's the end of the road. It just means you have to find another way to get where you're going. And so that, I believe, has really helped me in my life and my path.
Were there any critical moments or like a massive life-shifting obstacle that you had to learn to overcome?
I think one of the biggest shifting moments for me in high school, I guess, was I had struggled academically, and I had gotten, had some issues with grades initially. And then one day I realized that my life was my life, and I was responsible for getting myself to where I wanted to go, and that nobody was going to hold my hand and nobody was going to do it for me. And that, if it's to be, it's up to me. Right. And so I completely shifted and got very serious about school and got straight A's from that point forward. And I was determined to go to college and determined to get into a good college. And so it just that moment of realizing that I was completely responsible for my life and what I was going to do with it.
Woohoo!
Yeah, huge. And it's an incredible thing to know, because you always feel a little bit more in control of things around you, and you learn to navigate obstacles. I see problems or challenges as lessons and opportunities to do things differently. I'm a very optimistic person.
Awesome. And is that something that your father planted in you from the beginning? You came in wired that way, or you learned life is a lot more fun if you're an optimist?
Boy, I think it's a combination of all of those. One of the great things my dad did for me when I was growing up is we had a very open dialogue about everything. And if ever I had made a mistake in my eyes, or I had, done something wrong or broken a rule, I would always talk with him about it. And instead of feeling ashamed for having had, made a mistake, he would say, so what did you learn? And what are you going to do different next time? And so I have just sort of integrated that into everything that I do and with my kids and in my life. Just this idea that we are destined to make mistakes, that it's part of the process. You can't try something new and expect it to be perfect the first time, but you try it and you evaluate the experience and you do something different the next time. And you're constantly evolving and growing. And the more we have this sort of growth mindset of, just taking a chance and not staying back, we have no idea where we can go if we don't try.
Awesome. So what did you study and what's been your mission?
Growing up, I wanted to be a pediatrician. That was my big thing. And I at the time was really passionate about the mind-body connection. And I went to school, and I was an undergraduate. I studied at USC. I was a double major, psychology and pre-med.
Yeah.
And then about halfway through my first year, I realized that pre-med was so competitive. Like I had made an outline for an organic chemistry test, and it was probably a 30-page outline. I was very proud of it. I worked very hard. I sat down next to another girl in my class, and her outline was like 75 pages, typed with flowcharts and color and all these things. And I looked at mine, I looked at hers, and I just thought, if this is my freshman year and this is how competitive we are in this field, I'm looking at the next 10 years of craziness. And I also realized that my most important mission for me was to be a mom and to be able to be a good mom to my kids and really get to parent my children. And if I pursued the doctor path, I would be compromising my values around motherhood. And so I dropped the pre-med, and decided to focus on psychology. So I got my degree in psychology. Then I went on to graduate school, and I got my master's in clinical psychology. Started a private practice, got a license. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been in practice for over 10 years. And then simultaneously to pursuing my private practice, I was also very passionate about sexuality. The physical connection we have with our bodies and we have with our partners. And just that was, as a marriage and family therapist, sexuality is a big part of a marriage. And I personally and professionally was curious about how to improve that for people. So created workshops and started working with women and couples on sexuality outside of my practice. So my workshops are much more education, resource-based versus psychology, because it's not necessarily a topic that people want support in. They want resources. They want to know how to improve things. They want it to be practical. And so doing that, I then decided to get my PhD in human sexuality so that I could have a very professional background in the field. And that tends to really reassure people when you're talking around sexuality. So did that. And now I'm, integrating that into my world.
Awesome. And something we were talking about off air, and we may well have you back to have a discussion about this. There was a tagline I read from one of the magazine articles, and we don't need to dive in there today, but it was too cool to resist. You help people take the monotony out of monogamy.
Yes, totally. That is my passion. We don't have to flatten. We can love each other with excitement for a long time.
I love it.
Yeah.
So let's dovetail from there into believe it to achieve it, which actually has some crossover there. What's the importance of asking the questions such as, who am I? Why am I here? And what do I really want out of life?
Well, I think that having clarity is such a significant thing for people in any way, clarity in your relationship around your values, clarity around your professional path, knowing what matters to you and what motivates you and what drives you forward is, I think, really significant in giving people sort of the confidence in their own lives to be creative and express themselves and contribute to society and feel like they are a valuable human being.
So this is something we're coming. Thank you. We're coming towards to the beginning of the year, end of the year and beginning of the year. So it's important we start asking ourselves these questions if we've kind of tucked them under the rug and say, someday I'll get to that. Or for many people, they're really scary to even ask. Yes,
exactly. And the problem is that if we tend to react to the world around us, then we're really not in charge of our time and our energy. We really need to be proactive. So just the idea of identifying what's important to you and what you want, even on a daily basis. And this is especially relevant to women who are managing, professional and personal lives and dealing with kids and their jobs and different things like that. Dividing your time in a way that all of your actions reflect what's important to you really, I think, makes a big difference in feeling bad or feeling guilty about being in one space and thinking they should be in another space. So when you decide how you're spending your time in advance, then when you're there, you can be fully present versus thinking you should be somewhere else.
That makes perfect sense. So from there, let's talk about why people get stuck. And maybe we'll start with the mental laws and maybe even go with the law of cause and effect, causality. If you do what successful, happy people do over and over, there is nothing that can stop you from eventually getting the same results.
Yes, definitely. And that is such a great lesson because we don't have to reinvent the wheel. One of the greatest things is finding people who are having an experience that you want or have accomplished something that you want to accomplish. And rather than trying to figure out how they got there, asking them, reaching out to them and saying, like, what steps did you take? Because you can take the same steps and often get the same results. But I do think that a lot of times we get stuck because we don't know what steps to take. And so we have this idea of where we want to go, but we don't quite know how to get there. And so when you see the result and you find out the causes that get that result, you can do that and get the same result.
So do people get stuck when they're saying, I want to get to XYZ, I want to get to this level of success, I want to get to wherever, and they don't have the blueprint to get there, and instead, because of the wiring of our childhood, don't do that, follow mom and dad, all of a sudden we get stuck rather than even going to look for the blueprint, we say, oh, I can't do this.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing how some people have experiences in their youth growing up where children are either empowered to make decisions and to feel important and to be able to make mistakes so that they take chances, or there's the parents who are always giving their kids the answer, and then the children are never able to really figure out what their own answer or their own thought process looks like. And so it's almost like we can potentially disempower our children to be fully functioning adults by not letting them try and make a mistake. And so I think a lot of adults end up getting stuck because they've never learned how to make a decision or take a chance. And that comes from, you have to be trained and you have to have the courage to try and fail, and that failing is part of the process.
Is there a way to start to cultivate ourselves, like to take baby steps? This is going to sound strange, baby steps towards mistakes, because if we make mistakes and we survive, in theory, we're willing to take a chance and make bigger mistakes, which can also empower us.
Yes. In fact, we talk about the comfort zone a lot in this book. And we all have our comfort zones in so many different ways. And when you have an anxious experience of stepping outside of your comfort zone, which is natural because you're comfortable, you know what you're experiencing, you can trust what's happening. Sometimes it's serving you and sometimes it doesn't serve you, but it's what you know. And taking a little step outside of your comfort zone, tolerating the anxiety that comes from that, and seeing what happens sort of validates that process. And pretty soon you can start taking bigger and bigger steps and trying more and more new things. Beautiful. But it is the comfort zone definitely is one of those things that holds people back.
On the hold back side of things, thank you for sharing on that. We also get to touch on emotions. And we were talking about, in a sense, thoughts become things with causality, but it's also what we believe with emotion becomes our reality as well.
Yes, definitely. So if one of the things I love to talk about is the idea that we can think about something one way, and whatever your perception is, whether, people have different perceptions, like you can have three sides of a story. There's 1, 2 in the actual story, but the way we see something and the way we think about something determines how we feel about it. And so you can actually change the way you feel about something by changing the way you think about it. And it really is a matter of sometimes gaining more information, sometimes reframing something and trying to see it a different way. And this is relevant for our past, for our future, the present, to just be able to kind of get different perceptions of it. And by shifting our perception, because perception is reality, right? And so shifting that allows you to change how you feel. And then it makes a big difference in terms of your ability to function with it.
When you talk with people about this, do you have some tools to help people to get out of their own bubble, to really shift that perspective?
Yes. In fact, I love to talk about the idea of differences, that people are, instead of it being my way and your way, to start to shift your mind to think about we're different people and we have different ways of doing things, different ways of thinking about things. And so coming from a place of curiosity about, well, what is your way? I'm curious about why you do it this way. How is this working for you?
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you why I'm doing it my way and how it's working for me. And by sort of having a collaborative conversation about, hey, we're different and we do it different ways because your way works for you and my way works for me, it really is a way for people to shift their feelings around something because they're able to honor someone else's experience without taking it personally or being attached to what they're doing.
Beautiful. Addressing the law of attraction real briefly, and that's kind of where the book starts on many levels. What is your, how can you help us with this concept?
Well, if you think about the way, what you think about and what you imagine
Mm-hmm.
and what you look for in the world, you are sort of putting out an idea, you're putting out an energy, and you attract it back to you. So the idea of the law of attraction is you put out what you want to come back to you, and you can determine how you think and what you're going to invest your time and energy in, and that will determine what comes back to you. So it's sometimes people get stuck feeding negative thoughts versus positive thoughts because negative thoughts, tend to hijack us emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
But we have the choice to say, okay, do I want to feed this part of my mind or do I want to feed this other part? And the more we invest in our positive thoughts, the more we trust that things are happening for a reason or that everything is going to be okay, the more things are okay and the more things happen for a reason. And we just sort of create that path in our lives.
When we've got a deep groove in the mental pathway, in the neural pathway, a deep path in the pathway, when we have that and we keep finding ourselves jumping onto the negativity rut and going, this can't work, I can't do it, all the kids that start coming out to us, is there a way to derail that, to put what I like to say a monkey in the wheel, sorry monkey, to get us out of that pathway of fear or doubt or self-sabotage us and show our minds or help us to see there's another way?
Yes, absolutely. It's, it really is a matter of being aware of what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's this concept called snowballing, where when you have a thought, if you feed that thought, the snowball gets bigger and you feed it again and you feed it again, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And pretty soon it's out of control and takes over everything. And so if you can acknowledge when you have that initial thought, when it's just a little thought, and at that moment, talk to yourself and decide, okay, I could go down this road and I could create this and just give this more and more energy, or I can stop right now and choose another thought that I'm going to supplement right here. And you start feeding the other thought in the other direction. You can't be focusing on two things at the same time. So really feeling like you have the power to choose and choosing the one that's going to serve you better.
I remember years ago, I had a dear friend in my graduate school programs, and about a year and a half after graduation, she took her own life, and she had everything in the world going for her. The looks, the brains, the laughter, everything. But she had wiring that said she's not good enough, she'll never get it together, and it will never work out for her. She's broken. And what I learned from this experience with my dear friend, because I was struggling with a lot of self-worth and self-love issues myself at that time, is that if I start down that road, at some point I'll end up like her, because there's no logical end to, like you're saying, that snowball. When we catch it at its inception, in fact, in a later chapter, you talk about anger and not feeding the anger, not going down that road. But when the emotion comes up, what do we do so that we're not, if we don't want to focus on anger, but we also don't want to stuff it under the carpet? So what do we do with that emotion?
You don't stuff it under the carpet. I don't support that in any way. I think we really do have to love ourselves. And I think part of, I feel like the struggle with self-doubt is so common, even amongst incredibly successful people. And like you're saying, your friend who had everything, it's just some people have this they're questioning themselves and finding a way to really acknowledge your value to yourself as if you were your own friend, and figuring out, like, if I was my own best friend, what would I talk about? What would I say I like about myself? And really learning to validate yourself and give yourself positive self-talk. And then when those feelings come up, I think it's really important to acknowledge the feelings. I think it's important if the anger comes up or the sadness comes up or the anxiety comes up. One of the things that I like to do is just sort of talk through it, even with myself when I have a feeling. But I think it's important, like I was saying before, with the differences, there are a lot of different perspectives and you never know exactly what's happening. We have initial feelings that come up and they can feel overwhelming, but just pausing and sitting with it and sort of thinking it through and trying to understand where it came from. And, one of the things that I talk about is when we have big reactions to small things, oftentimes those big reactions are not what has just triggered the feeling, but it's a series of experiences that are similar to that. And really, that's an incredible opportunity to grow as an individual and figure out, wow, I'm having a big reaction and this is the feeling I'm getting. I wonder why this is so meaningful to me. And seeing it as a chance of like becoming more self-aware and more empowered in your own life in terms of knowing yourself.
Woohoo! So let's say something triggers you, and I experienced this recently, something that was not proportional to whatever took place, and it was part of my self-worth wiring, and so I immediately ran to my journal, and I do this process called automatic writing, and I dove in and I'm going, what in the world is going on? How do we start to lean into these emotions rather than push them away?
Leading into the emotions by acknowledging it, like, wow, give it a name. I feel really angry right now. I feel really sad right now. What just happened pissed me off. And then, okay, well, I'm angry. So let's see, what is this angry? Because sometimes we're angry because we're sad. Like there's the movie Home. I don't know if you've seen that movie, right? But there's this movie, it's a kid's movie. And they talk about being sad, mad. And it's a kid term, because what the character in the movie is mad, or she's sad because her mom is gone, but she's manifesting this in a mad way. And so she just walks around being sad, mad. And I think a lot of times when we are having an angry reaction, it's because we're hurt, we're sad, something we felt like maybe a need wasn't met, or somebody didn't notice something that was important to us. And we can't quite go to the sad place, so we get mad. So figuring out if you're mad, figuring out if you're sad, and where the root is, again, it's sort of a way to validate yourself so that you don't necessarily need it from someone else, but you're just honoring your own experience.
Is it good? Would you have people sit with this, go for a walk and talk with themselves? Would you have them, I believe you're a big fan of journaling and writing things out as well.
I absolutely am a fan of journaling. I think it's really important to breathe, to journal, to take time alone, to give yourself space to gain a better understanding of what's happening.
How our parents may have inadvertently, because this is about empowerment. It's not about blame, but a few of the two biggest mistakes that parents make that kind of set our minds up for this self-worth challenge journey.
Okay. Well, I think that it's an interesting subject, being that I wrote this book with my father. So, parents criticize their children because they grew up with that. I think that that's also a generational thing. So, because I believe that parents now are becoming more mindful of how they parent their children, and they're not necessarily as critical. There's a different language around parenting now, but for certain generations, parents grew up criticizing their children to help them to change or to shape the behavior. And that, like I said before, with the decision-making process, if parents were like, don't do that, don't touch that, don't go there, and they didn't really empower their kids to make mistakes or make their own choices, then everything is scary. And so they just assume that they shouldn't try something, they shouldn't go somewhere, and that they have this ingrained fear of stepping outside of the comfort zone or making a mistake. And nobody, when you're afraid of making a mistake, you're terrified of trying. So really letting your kids make mistakes, letting yourself make mistakes. You can change the way you're experiencing this and moving forward by acknowledging that you're going to make a mistake. Everything is hard before it's easy, and we have to try, and we have to, learn what isn't working and do it differently next time. So I think that, yeah.
No, that's powerful. I was thinking recently of my wife being an angel recently on this one, in that I spill things a lot. There's just I'm very mindful, I'm very present, and it just doesn't work out. And recently I dropped something in the kitchen, and my wiring went right back to childhood, because I always got in trouble for this. And I looked at my wife, and I'm like, she basically, she didn't say anything, but the general energy was, it's okay, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yep. See, and it's like an automatic thing. And so what's amazing is the more you have this other experience, you'll actually shift, and pretty soon you'll spill things and be like, it's okay, I'll be fine. It won't be such a big deal.
And I know when we have kids coming into this world, or into our family, and they spill something, well, I'm not going to, who am I to scold? Why would I scold? All it's doing is planting fear. All that would do is plant fear.
All it does is plant fear.
Let's talk about the other piece of that equation, a lack of love.
Yeah. And I don't think that parents do this intentionally. Mm-hmm. These are just things to be aware of. I think that, in reading this book, it's important to realize that we do things sometimes unconsciously, and we do it based on where we're coming from, our previous experiences. But a lot of times, I think that criticism is sort of the assertive way of punishment, and withholding love is sort of the passive way of punishment, mm-hmm. because some people don't have the language to express their feelings, or they don't know how to manage a situation, and what they do is withdraw. And so, and again, like I think it's important to me and anybody listening and anybody reading the book that I don't think that people should feel bad about this if they tend to do this as their sort of fallback plan when they're trying to navigate a situation. But we do either have to go in or we go out when we're trying to navigate some sort of intense situation, especially with parenting or with your partner when there's a lot of feelings involved. But that, again, withholding love or just sort of withdrawing on an emotional level does feel like abandonment for people, whether it's your partner or your kids. And that creates this anxiety around, if I'm not okay, somebody will leave me. And that's another reason why people get stuck, is because they don't want someone else to leave them if they aren't what they want, what they think that person wants them to be. And so a big challenge for people in partnership is just this idea that oftentimes we try to be what the other person wants us to be, mm-hmm. versus who we actually are. And this happens in the beginning of relationships, where we sort of put on this face of, here is my perfect self, and you can fall in love with the perfect me. And then once you get into this relationship and time goes on, suddenly the real you starts to peek through, and the person you're with is like, whoa, wait a sec. Where was this person when we first started dating? And who are you now? And so the more we can be authentic in the beginning, mm-hmm. and just really show up and be with a person who reacts positively to who we are, not who we think we should be, I think that makes a big difference in terms of the fear of them withdrawing from us or withholding love. And we want to encourage our children to be who they are. And, we can disagree with their behavior and disagree with things and share our opinions, mm-hmm. like the differences. But again, it's like, okay, I don't necessarily agree with what you're doing. This isn't okay. In our family, this is how it works, but not, holding back that information or holding back the opinion feels like withholding love.
Thank you. And I want to dovetail one of the words in there to another topic, which is authenticity. The importance mm-hmm. of authenticity, and in a strange way, allowing yourself to have your own personal, authentic dreams for the future without somebody else's box or limitations being put on them.
Absolutely. I think, I believe that that's pretty much one of it should be a core driver for all of us, is to really be who we are. And I think part of life's quest is to figure out who we are, right? Mm-hmm. a matter of like looking at who you are and deciding all these messages that have been planted in your garden or in your life over time, what is really you, and those voices in your head, like which stories do you believe to be true about you, and which stories no longer serve you, or they came from someone else and it's no longer relevant. So part of that process is figuring out who you really are, who you really want to be, and then owning that and deciding what that's going to look like for your future. I think, as you know, in partnership, this is another really big one where, again, it's like the differences. You know, you can say, I really want to accomplish A, B, and C, and you share that with your partner, and your partner can come up with it A, B, and C, and they share it with you, and the two of you can collaborate as a team, knowing what each other is trying to accomplish with their lives, and it becomes a very supportive relationship, and you honor each other's experience while getting to be a part of it.
We're doing, my wife Jessica, she came to me, I guess it was about a week ago, and she had bought this new book. It's called The 100 Bucket List. And she's trying to fill in all of the bucket list items for her life or for the coming year. And so I started writing mine down as well. And we're comparing and we're swapping and we're stealing each other's bucket list items. And it's real exciting.
Great. Yes. And then you can do them together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things I really encourage people to do is, and we are coming to January, so this is perfect, is to sit down and decide what your goals are for the year, you know, and really become clear about like what your so one of the things I do with my husband is we sit down and we have relationship goals, and we come up with things that we want for our relationship. So, you know, how many times we want to have a date per week, what kind of things we want to do in terms of helping each other grow or nurture our relationship. We have a family category, so we do family goals. We do spiritual or personal goals, like growth goals. We do professional goals. And we do this whole thing together so that I'm learning what he wants to do. He's learning what I want to do. And together we have collaborative goals. So, and it's nice to sort of have this map going into 2018 of, hey, this year, these are the things I'm hoping for and I'm working towards.
I love the synchronicity. We were talking about this. I have Michael's Daily Wows, Words of Wisdom, each morning on our, we have this little thing on Patreon called our Backstage Pass. And so I was doing this morning and talking about all these different categories. And Jessica jumped in from behind and she said, and then the coolest thing is at the end of the year, go back and reread them together and see what you guys actually accomplished.
Totally. And if you go back even before the end of the year. So if you go back every like 4 months, you can actually remind yourself, so you can hold yourself accountable to keep working towards them. But yeah, it's incredibly satisfying when you you write down a goal and at the end of the year you check back and you've done it. It's like having that task completion is incredibly boosting for your self-confidence, whatever it is. Yeah. I mean, the gentleman who just wrote a book about making your bed, and you wake up in the morning and you make your bed and you start your day feeling like you've done something.
I like it. So let's talk more about goal setting, and I guess we could talk about bed making. How do we, since we are coming up to the new year, what do you teach people when people come in and say, I'm not able to achieve my goals, I get stuck? Where do we begin in making our goals for the new year?
Okay, so you have to write down a goal that is present tense and measurable. So it's got to be something you can accomplish. You know, professionally, people can say, I earn $100,000 by the end of the year, right? So it's sort of in the present, but you have a deadline and it's a doable thing depending on who you are and what your job is. Or health-wise, I exercise this many times a week. I weigh this much. I have taken this class. So you're saying I did this, but it's sort of looking into the future and it's measurable so that you can accomplish, when you look back at it, you could say, yes, I can measure that I have accomplished that goal. It can't be vague. Like I've learned a lot about psychology, because how do you measure that? And then if it's a big goal, so if you let's say wanted to go back to school and get a degree, I get my master's degree. That would require multiple steps. So I apply to a school and I get into this school. I then finish the first year, so you have little goals along the way to the big goal so that you keep on track.
As you're making these goals, How do you balance wanting to have a large goal without having too big of a goal where it gets rejected by your subconscious?
That's where you make the little goals along the way. So it's sort of like you're in your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
You have this big target you're working towards, but you create little stepping stones along the way. And so all you have to do is get from where you are to the first stepping stone. And once you get there, then you get from that stone to the next stone. And so it's like you have little bites to get to the main dish.
Beautiful. Going back to positivity and being optimistic, you have a question, if I understand right, that you ask your husband often. If this was a perfect day, what would you do with it?
Yeah, I love that question. And that came up because so often when you start the day and you say, "Hey, what would your perfect day look like?" Oftentimes we don't share everything because we're worried that our perfect day and our partner's perfect day might not go together.
Mm-hmm.
And so we hold back because we don't want to put too much on their plate, or we don't want to be rejected with our idea. So if you can say, "What is your perfect day?" and you could fantasize what the day looks like, then you can find out what your partner's perfect day looks like and see where it overlaps without any holding back.
Beautiful. I joked about it at the beginning. Got to ask, what is Planner Pad? How do you use this?
Oh my God, I love Planner Pad. So it is actually a written down planner.
Mm-hmm.
It's a company. You can get it online. What I love about it is I sit down on Sunday evening or Monday morning, depending on how it works with my schedule, and I plan out the week. And there's different categories. So you can have, for me, I have some work categories, and I have home, and then I have 3 kids. So I have these different categories, and each category requires multiple things. And then you can schedule your day based on tasks. So you can write a to-do list, and you can put it into time,
mm-hmm.
and you can check off what you're doing as you're doing it so that it keeps you really organized and you waste less time. And so for us busy people, it's very easy to waste time and get distracted by, things around the house, different things with work, social media, those kind of things. And there's a big page at the front of each month.
Mm-hmm.
So you can even write your goals for the month. So my goals for December, and you can reference them as you're going through the month.
Then do you review them each evening before the next day, or do you wait till you get up in the morning to take a look at it? How often are you touching base?
I like to touch base every morning because it sort of helps me plan every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to be more efficient when I can plan, when I can see what I've decided is important for my day and where I can fit things in.
Do you have a morning routine?
A morning routine?
Yes.
Yeah. I wake up at 7 every morning.
Mm-hmm.
My son, we go down and I drink coffee, and I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. The 2 of them drink milk, and we sit and we read some books for about 15 minutes. And then we get into make breakfast, get dressed. We have to leave the house at 8 o'clock to get them to school. And so, it's kind of like we've got that 15 minutes of checking in and reading and having our nice warm drinks. And then it's go, 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 get them to school. And so I get back from dropping them off because we can walk our kids to school at about 8:20. And that's when I usually sit down at my desk, look at my planner, and determine what the next steps of the day are.
Beautiful. So let's talk real briefly. Thank you for sharing on that. I want to talk about some keys to great achievement, and there are 7 steps. I want to ask real briefly on each one of these. The first one is values, and what's a values clarification exercise?
So the way I do a values clarification exercise is I have a list of categories. Mm-hmm. So typically it's profession, family, health, hobbies, travel, material, social, relationships. And I usually ask people, and if there's more categories, I'll have people look at these and prioritize which one of the categories makes them the happiest. Mm-hmm. And then the second happiest and the third happiest, and so on and so on. And I feel like, and then the other thing I have people do is create a pie graph. Mm-hmm. and show how they're spending their time. So then they draw, depending on what's working with time-wise, sometimes there's bigger chunks in profession or hobby or whatever it is. And then we check our priorities on our values. Then I have them draw a pie graph that reflects the ranking of the values. So that if number one is family, then family should be your biggest piece of pie, and going through the list and so on and so on. And then we talk about the first pie graph in comparison to the second pie graph.
And if those pies are out of order, then we work to mix and match the pieces of pie?
Yeah, then you have to figure out making the first pie look more like the second pie. Yeah, because really, again, that's sort of a reflection of our values and what makes us feel the most balanced. I feel like when people are spending time, we're wasting time in areas that are not really reflecting our values, we tend to feel ungrounded. I really believe our bodies tell us we feel incongruent with what we're doing, and we feel guilty. But when we're doing something that actually matters to us, hey, it feels good.
This jumps ahead out of order slightly, but if we talk about a mission, do you have people write out a mission statement?
I haven't actually had people write out a mission statement. I think it's a good idea. I think that in journaling that could be helpful. Yeah. I definitely think you have to come up with a mission statement in your head. You have to know your why and what drives you and what's important to you, and give yourself a mission statement.
Beautiful. So let's talk about vision and looking forward, like 5 years from now. What do we want our lives to look like? How do we do this? You just create that. You could say, in 5 years from now, what is going on in my life? Like if you were writing a letter to yourself in the future, you can say, okay, so where do I live? What does my career look like? What does my family look like? What does my daily routine look like? What will I be doing for work? Where will I be traveling? And again, it's like having your perfect day. You just fantasize 5 years from now what you want that to look like. And then you can start to make goals that could maybe take you down that path to create that reality. Thank you. Let's talk about purpose for a moment. And this is one that people, they probably... No, it absolutely is the number one concern that people have who listen to this show, is discovering or finding my purpose. How do we help people to start to do that?
I would start with the value exercise, because it really does give you clarity in terms of what has the most meaning to you. So if you're driven to pursue a cause professionally, that's part of your purpose. If you're driven to be a parent, that's part of your purpose. So figuring out, and the value thing too is, it's like, if you only had limited time, where would you want to spend that time? Like, what would be the most important thing to you? So if you had 6 months to live, what would you do in the next 6 months? And then that really helps you identify that purpose.
Do you have people, I'm not sure if it's Brian's tool, your dad's tool, or yours, but write out their own obituary?
That is Brian's tool.
I had a feeling about that.
I'm sort of more a create and, develop something. He believes that that's, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want to create? And that's another tool for figuring out what your purpose is, and, that kind of thing.
How important is it to start to set goals? Something we were talking about earlier.
It's incredibly important. If you want to, something like 87% of people don't write down their goals. And if you have an idea of something you want and you write it down, you are way more likely to accomplish it than if you just imagine it in your mind.
And then I want to talk about a dangerous P word, priorities, or prioritizing.
Yes, absolutely. You must prioritize. This goes back to sort of the value prioritizing. And then, like for me with the planner pad or your day, you have to prioritize the most important thing, the one that has the most significant value, has to be done first. And then you move on down the list and you give, your priority, your A category, your B category, your C category, and you get through these elements. You do the first ones. Once you've done them, you can go on to the second category. And if you have to defer the third category to another day, that's what you have to do. But it's important to identify the ones that are important and identify the things that can be deferred. I think a lot of times when we're busy, we add too many things to our plate that we don't really need to do.
Do you believe in front loading, or what do we do when somebody says, I know I need to take action, and that's the 7th step, take action, but I'm not getting done what's most important?
Can you ask that a different way?
Yeah. How do you help people who are stuck saying, I've written down my priorities, I know what's most important, yet life is pulling me left or right, and I'm not getting done the things that are most important to move the needle forward?
Well, and that comes from reacting, I think. So people who are reacting to the things around them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a plan and you're going to do A, B, and C, and then somebody calls you and says, hey, can you do this? And you say, yeah, sure, then you're going to do something else before you do your A, B, and C. And that's where you get derailed and you start reacting to circumstances around you. What we really need to do is make the decision to make a plan, figure out what those top priority actions are, get through those top priority actions, and then say, yeah, sure, I can do that. So, if somebody's asking you for a favor or asking you to take on a task, it's like, yes, I can do that after I get through A, B, and C.
Which again kind of brings it full circle of taking care of yourself. I think you'd be a strong believer in putting the oxygen mask on yourself before anybody else.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to. If we can't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of the people around us. And so self-love, exercise, taking care of our bodies, nurturing ourselves is absolutely necessary in order to take care of anyone else around us, kids, partners, whatever.
If somebody's struggling, if they're listening to this and they're struggling with self-love, and I love to share, I probably share too often, about how when I was going down this road and I was trying to cultivate self-love around the time that my friend passed away, and I remember going into a bathroom and saying, I love myself, I love myself.
Absolutely.
At that point, it didn't work so well. It was important, but I did what I call redecorating the bathroom, which involved quite a bit of expensive replacement of parts and glass in the bathroom.
Yeah. But part of that, sometimes that exercise feels too vague to people. And I think you have to, when you say I love myself or I like myself, sometimes you have to have reasons why you like yourself or what you like about yourself, what you love about yourself. And that, again, is a perfect activity where you say, if I was talking to my best friend and said, what do you like about Christina? What would they say? And you have to determine what they would say about yourself.
Ooh, very, very, very cool. On that note, how important is it to help build the esteem in others?
It's incredibly important. I mean, imagine if we're building our own self-esteem and then we become a better, more positive person. And by building the self-esteem in our partner or our friends or our coworkers, we're also elevating them and their energy and their positivity. And just you create a more generally happy group of people and society and community and everything. Your family gets elevated. We really want people to be the best they can be. We want our partners to be happy and confident. We want our kids to be happy and confident. So it's all about helping them and facilitating that self-love. And then everybody is happier.
Woohoo! What's one way we can help our kids to facilitate more self-love?
Praising them, listening to them, undivided attention, for sure. And just really acknowledging what they're doing and how they're doing things and who they are. And not just, oh, you play soccer, oh, you're an artist, but, their thoughts and their insights to things and their creativity and different aspects like that.
Beautiful.
I think that's really important. Same with your partner, praise and appreciation is huge for everyone.
If your partner isn't where you're at on your path, and asking them to change obviously doesn't work, what is the best thing you can do?
Ask them if they want to make a change in the relationship or they want to improve the situation. You have to, if two people want to improve something, it can be improved. If one person doesn't, it takes two to tango. So there really has to be a commitment on both ends to improve something and make it better.
I like that. You cut right through the chase. Instead of looking at the individual aspect, you're going, all right, are we going to find a way? And
Well,
then you got
yeah,
a baseline.
you can't force your partner to wear the oxygen mask. They have to be willing to wear it too.
Absolutely. So if I was to take off my coaching hat right now and I put it on you so that people don't leave here today without a homework assignment to help empower and change their lives, what assignment would you give people?
I would, so for the next year, and I love categories, so I suggest personal goals.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 personal goals, 5 partnership goals. So if you're in a relationship or if you want to be in a relationship, 5 goals that you have for you and your partner or you have for your future relationship.
Yeah.
5 goals for your family, how you want to spend time as a family, something you want to accomplish. And then travel goals, material goals. So goals of, things you might want to buy during the next year.
Yeah.
I always put, home improvement in this category, the never ending project. And then professional goals.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe what you want to learn, how you want to improve your job, if you want to get a job. And then spiritual or personal development goals. That's my favorite category. So, maybe a book you want to read or a workshop you want to attend, something of the sort. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then what would you tell for parents to help their kids in this coming year?
Our kids are at an age now where we're going to get them to write their own goals as well and sort of
How
check
old are
in
they?
with what
You said 8 and 5?
I have 11, 8, and 5. Yeah. And so for the, we'll work with the 5-year-old, but I think for the 11 and the 8-year-old, they can come up with things they want to accomplish and, kind of teach them this because it really is for them and for us. This is a way of feeling in control of your future and having clarity of what you're working towards. And I think so much of our confidence in moving forward is knowing what we're moving towards. It's like the idea of going on a trip. You pick a destination and then you get yourself to the destination. You don't just hop on a plane and fly hoping you get somewhere.
Yep.
And so these goals that we're creating are pretty much like little destinations in different areas of our lives. So and it's fun and you can talk about it as a family and you can talk about it with your partner and, it really just gives you a plan for the year. And at the end of the year, like you said, you look over it with yourself, with your kids, with your partner and say, hey, look what we accomplished this year. We wouldn't have accomplished this if we hadn't written this down. And it's just something to be proud of. So
woohoo!
I think it's huge.
I think that's so incredibly empowering for kids too, because they no longer feel like they're not accomplishing something when they can look back. I know when I do coaching sessions, if I don't review either the session or our whole program, people don't realize how far they've come.
Exactly. And it's great. Again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about accomplishing a task. Mm-hmm. Like when you decide to do something and you complete the task, you feel really good about it because you feel like you started something, you finished something, and it's done, and you can move on to another task. It really does boost your self-esteem and your self-confidence, knowing you can take something on and you have the power to finish it and do it.
Woohoo! So what personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
Boy, best. I am a huge family person. I love my husband. I love my kids. I am very happy when we all are in a good place, when we're hanging out together and everybody seems happy and we have sort of this collaborative family effort. That to me is really, that's when I feel very content and very satisfied. I also individually, when I set big goals and I accomplish a big goal, I feel, especially when it's been hard, because, big goals are not easy to accomplish. They require a lot of work. And so when I set a big goal for myself and I figure out the steps necessary and I struggle through the steps because sometimes I have to learn something new. Sometimes I have to get out of my comfort zone and have uncomfortable conversations or, something that I'm not used to doing. at the end of it, I can look back and say, wow, look what you just did. And the same way with our kids, the more we have these experiences of, wow, look what you just did to your partner, to your kids, to yourself, the more you feel empowered to do more and try new things and try more things. So it really does build on itself.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Before I ask one last wrap-up question, I can't resist. I wish I had asked you this at the beginning, and you did allude to it. What was it like? What's it been like working with your dad on various book projects?
It's been an awesome experience for us in terms of giving us something to collaborate on. Mm-hmm. He's really busy. I'm really busy, but this is sort of a common goal that we have. And so we have to communicate. We have to brainstorm. It's been really nice in terms of shifting the dynamic. So the hierarchy is a little different with us. Yeah. And, I can sort of offer my expertise. He can offer his expertise. We can battle out how we're going to do it. It's good. And I think it's been nice for me too, because he was working way before I was. Mm-hmm. So as I've, evolved in my professional life, I'm now bringing things to the table, and I'm bringing ideas and experiences that he is respecting and appreciating and able to see me for my own evolved professional person. So it's just different, and it's nice, and we have a regular check-in. So it's great.
And that is a huge woohoo.
Yeah, it is a huge woohoo.
Any last words of wisdom you want to share with people, Christina?
I would just like to say, I think something that's really significant to me that I want to share with everybody is this idea, we talked about it in the beginning around self-doubt. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many amazing people I have talked to and worked with and trained with and, am friends with that are capable, successful, educated, creative, that are really contributing in different ways, whether they're, finding new ways to do things or they're just the results they're getting are amazing. And these people, it's like everybody carries around a little bag of self-doubt. Mm-hmm. And I think that the more we can appreciate that part of ourselves and know that everybody is kind of carrying that around, that the more we can build each other's self-esteem and give each other love, whether it's loving energy when we see each other, just acknowledging the fact that everybody has a story and we don't know what their story is. And that if we assume that, they have good intentions and we have good intentions, I feel like we could connect and really raise the vibration of everyone, really embracing others and building self-esteem is so huge, especially with that self-doubt piece.
Woohoo!
Awesome.
I used to coach kids with learning disabilities and attention deficit disorder, and I would always tell the parents, first off, protect the relationship, protect the relationship, protect the relationship, protect the relationship, and the next is the esteem. If they don't have that, yes, they have nothing. The grades don't matter. Nothing else matters. It's all about their esteem.
Absolutely. It really is. And as adults too, and as partners, it doesn't stop. We never stop needing that praise and the validation and the love and all of that. And so, even with our kids, we have to continue to love our partners and build them up as well. So it's so important.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Christina. This has been so beautiful, empowering for people. I think really awesome. Empowering for parents and their kids as well. So I can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. And thank you to all of you people listening. I hope that it brings you some sort of insight and action for the new year. Don't forget to write down those goals.
Perfect. Everybody, you've got your homework. Where can people go to get Believe It to Achieve It?
Well, my favorite place is Amazon. But I also encourage you to check out your local bookstores because we've got to keep them alive. So if you have a bookstore down the street, please check those out and see if they can't order it for you or you can't support them in some way because they're a dying breed.
Amen. And is there a website you want to send people to?
Yeah, if you want more information about me, my website is christinastein.com. Please check me out. Send me an email if you have any questions about today. I'd be happy to answer them.
Fantastic. If you didn't catch ChristinaStein.com, is that correct?
Yep.
If you didn't catch ChristinaStein.com, come on over to InspireNationShow.com. We'll get you over to ChristinaStein.com. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, believe it to achieve it, and begin unlocking your full potential today and shine bright. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. It was great.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, InspireNationShow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!